Hello, LINC family. I want to welcome you today to our LINC Talks podcast. And I have with me today a special guest, Jeffrey Parker. And I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a minute, tell you about what he does. But we are in a year of building legacy together. And so that's part of our theme today. And we're actually going to be talking about building. And so what do you have to do with building, Jeffrey?
Well, what we do is really create buildings by designing them, which is really a cool experience to start with churches where it's really a glint in their eye. They know they have a lot of needs, but they really don't know how to go about translating that into a purpose-driven building.
Yeah.
And but it's exciting because you start there, and at the end you have this tangible building that you've been a part of the team in creating.
Yeah.
And
so you guys get to come alongside of a pastor or a church that's either growing or remodeling, and they have a vision to reach people in their community, and you get to come alongside of them and that process of actually building a building that will produce legacy in the lives of marriages, in the lives of people who's, maybe gone wayward in their life and they're recovering from addictions and things of that nature. So that's a really cool journey. That's got to be meaningful to you personally.
Oh, it's hugely meaningful. There's a lot of churches that we've worked with, say 15 years ago, and we've helped them create something. And you go there now, and there's so many people, they can't imagine not having those spaces. And now they need even more.
Yeah,
and
they're knocking on your door because, hey, we gotta get a bigger building.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's really true.
You and I were in a conversation one time, and you said something that was pretty unique, and that is many times because we don't know what we don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And many times people don't bring the architect into play until they've bought land, they've already committed to certain processes or decisions that they've made. They bring you in, and then you got to retrofit kind of to what they have. Whereas if they would have brought you in maybe on the front end of things, the project could have gone a lot smoother, and maybe even their vision could have been manifested in a much better way. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think when people think about architects, they think, well, you have to know what your needs are. You have to have your property, your building, everything has to be set. And then you hire the architect, and they help prepare the blueprints for making that come to pass. But what happens is people buy property, and the property may not be zoned properly for them to be able to use it, or there could be wetlands, a lot of clay versus sand. The highway department may prevent you from having access onto the road. There's just a lot of things that can happen. And so what our preference is if we can start a lot sooner rather than later so that we can help maneuver through all of those obstacles and you don't have issues. One church that we just helped up in Mount Pleasant was going to buy property. We had a pre-app meeting with the township to just get their feedback and see if we had any issues that we should be aware of before they closed on the property. And they discovered in that case that the township wanted to think about the church as almost like a concert hall or as an assembly space, not as a church. So if you had church on Sunday, that's okay. But if you wanted to have concerts or programs going on during the week, that was a big deal and would not be allowed. And so because they hadn't closed on the property yet, they could go through a process with city council and get that rectified so that when they actually did close on it, the city council had confirmed that they could use it for all of those uses. Yeah. So a lot of times pastors are intimidated to do anything with their buildings because it's kind of a fearful and awesome process, and there's a lot of room for screw-ups. And so if you have somebody that you can count on and trust to walk by your side, it can make you feel a lot more confident in going about the process, because really it's all very rationally based. There's not like a lot of secrets or hidden agendas along the way, but you have to just know what to look for to make sure that you don't get yourself in a jam. And then the building process can actually be an exciting benchmark experience for pastors and their congregations, especially with pastoral-led churches. Think, man, this is pretty cool. Pastors taking us through this. When can we do the next one?
Yeah.
That's what you want them to say, you know?
The other thing, too, though, is what some people don't realize is that all of these things that we're talking about right now really impact the budget.
They do.
Of their building program. And so some people, making these kind of mistakes. Oh, my.
Some people making these kinds of mistakes.
So some people making these kind of mistakes, then they go way over budget, and they lose credibility, even with their leadership.
They do. Maintaining your budget is a really huge deal with any church project, any project of any kind. But with churches, churches can only afford so much, and usually you're being stretched as to what you can do, because God always puts more needs out there than I think what He knows we can afford in our human eyes. But there's an element of faith and trust and follow me, where God is needing us to trust Him with building projects like He does with other things. But if we don't pay attention, something like poor soils can add significantly to the overall building cost.
Yeah.
And that money has to come from somewhere, and sometimes it comes out of the hide of the building.
Yeah. Rather than having our budget take care of excavation, we'd rather have it take care of ministry opportunities. But, also thinking about the building project, building process, there is a process. There's a process that builds trust. And, I think about some people's fear of architects in the sense that, okay, this architect, in the past, all they were after was getting their, stuff in the magazine. And, they really didn't listen. They didn't take care of our needs. How do you kind of navigate some of that?
I think it just comes through in our attitudes with people, and we are who we are. We don't try to be anything more. And I feel like what we're providing for churches is really like a ministry, and we're not in it to try to create buildings for magazines or anything like that. We're out to try to create legacy, which is what this is all about. Just like a lot of the buildings that we work for, churches we work for, there's already a church there. And it's so cool to think that people that have come before us have gone through a process to build that building and come up with the money to pay for it, and now that church is able to use that building to minister from, and it's just a cool thing. But by the same token, if God is blessing your ministry, some churches, I think, just ride on the legacy or on the coattails of what people have left them through their legacy, and we have to take our turns to keep our churches, our buildings current and impactful for ministry the way we do it today.
Yeah. So you have to steward what's been handed to you. The generational before you that paid the price to lay the foundation, Now you have an opportunity to create something that's culturally relevant for your generation.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the process of passing legacy, not only from the aspect of the lives that are impacted, but also stewarding the resources that God's given us. Jeffrey, take a minute and tell us a little bit about your walk with God and kind of how that came into being and why you want your company to be a kingdom company.
So I grew up in a church. I'm from West Michigan. I grew up in a Reformed church, surprise, surprise. But it was a very staid, conservative church. You'd go to church and your parents would drag the kids along, and you couldn't wait to go home. The only time we'd miss church every year is one Sunday night per year. The Wizard of Oz would be on, and my parents would let us skip church to watch the Wizard of Oz, and then us kids would sit around watching that and get scared by the monkeys on there. So anyway, that was my experience growing up, and families that went to church were not on fire for Christ.
Yeah.
But yet it was, I really became a Christian when I was in high school. So, but I just thought there should be something more. My dad was a contractor, so I grew up in the construction industry. But I wanted to do something that was more the designing part of things. So the architecture. So through my dad's involvement with buildings and my own involvement with the church I grew up in, I found a way to merge those two, and it's been incredibly meaningful. And now to go to churches where kids are just loving to be there, and their parents are loving to be there, it just reminds me of when I was a kid, and that was not the way. And so with the buildings that we do, if we can help encourage those, that to happen by having the right kinds of spaces where kids love to be there because it's a cool area to be. It's showing excellence for kids instead of just sticking them in rooms in the basement, like where I grew up, little tiny rooms down there.
No little four gray walls, and with the chalkboard. Or a flannel graph.
That's right.
That's back in the day.
So it's just exciting what's going on in churches today, and to be a part of that and create spaces.
Creating an ambiance where people feel comfortable to come in, and which, if we can create that experience for them, even from the parking lot, the facades that we use on the exterior, and just creating that environment, that atmosphere where people feel comfortable, then they can come in and their heart be open, creating space for an encounter with God.
It is.
That's so cool.
It is really cool. And, I think a lot of times it's like, if you go to a restaurant and it's a real dated restaurant, but they have awesome food, you might not go there that often because it's kind of utilitarian. It's not the whole experience. It's just the food. But if you can go to a restaurant where they just have this really cool experience and it brings out the life in people, plus they have the good food, that is an awesome mix. And that's what we try to do with churches. Churches, instead of food, you have the ministry. But if you can put that within a cool environment,
I like that analogy. Rather than building a place where they eat and run, you build a place where they eat and fellowship.
Yeah, exactly.
They hang out, build community.
Yeah, and the more people want to hang out and be together, I think the stronger of a church it is, because of the networking and connections that are there. Church is a lot about bringing people together from a variety of walks of life, different perspectives, different size families, different age groups, different everything. But if you can if you can help create a community for people that they love to be there and soak up God's blessings and become enriched, that's just cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, LINC family, we want to let you know, Jeffrey and his team have worked with a lot of our LINC churches. I mean, you've been around LINC now for, 20 years?
Yeah.
Maybe, plus or minus. And has helped many of our churches, design and be there through the construction process from beginning to end. And a lot of testimonies that we could bring to the table today of great experiences. Before we close, Jeffrey, one of the things is I know that you've been in this for a while. Mm-hmm. And we hit a little bit on it, but, there is the old style of church, there's the new style of church, and there's the style of church that we're moving toward. So how do you stay current with building trends and, different ministry scales? Because, like we said, used to children's ministry was put them in a room. Now we put them in actually an auditorium. We have children's church. Who knows what the next gen is going to be looking like? How do you stay current with those trends, and how do you work with churches to maybe help them see what they can't see?
I think one of the issues that I try to keep front and center is striving for excellence. And if we're striving for excellence, trying to push the boundaries of our thinking and what can be instead of what can't happen. Yeah. And also try to become inspirational for pastors and churches so that they don't settle for what they have or settle for doing something that's easy, but rather to try to think beyond the bounds of beyond your own paradigm to what can be, and strive for excellence. Because the more you're looking for what you can be, I think the more exciting and long-term benefit it will be to your ministry. The other thing is that old churches tended to be built a lot with bearing walls, concrete block. The building was a lot more fixed in its shape with its rooms and the outside walls. And what we try to promote now is having buildings that are easy to move walls around, to take a wall out, to put a wall in, add a door, take a door out, so that your building can breathe with you. Mm-hmm. When your ministry breathes in, your building can breathe in. When you breathe out, the building can breathe out. And you're not dealing with all these fixed elements that you can't do anything different. Yeah. The churches that are especially growing are often making changes to their buildings because they're trying to keep it fine-tuned to support their ministries that are constantly changing.
Yeah. So, hey, what I would encourage you to do is build a relationship with Jeffrey and his team early on, even before you maybe even purchase land or anything. Just beginning to build a relationship, talking about maybe some of the dreams that you have that you feel like are on the horizon. It's never too early to start the conversation because, listen to me, you're building for legacy. You're building for a future generation that hasn't arrived yet. And so we want to encourage you, be the best that you can be in every area, and that includes all of your facilities that facilitate ministry.